Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. And I am very excited to get into this one because we saw where last chapter was heading. We are at the very end game of Egghead. We are so close to things coming to the final conclusion of this earth shaking event that is going to completely turn everything upside down in the One Piece world. Who knows what Vegapunk's going to say? Because so far, it could be any number of things. And Oda is really drawing this out to make it the best possible reveal we've had in this series so far. And he's going to make it a memorable one. So I always read the chapters ahead of time because I get way too excited. I like to enjoy reading it myself and then come back and I've got so many thoughts about what is happening in this chapter and what is going to happen. So without further ado, chapter 1109, Termination. So already setting the precedence there. But we start the brand new cover story. The little story arcs we have, we're back to it now. And obviously, we are going to look at Wano. So the aftermath, we're going to be looking around, seeing what's happening. And to start with, Onigashima has sunk to the bottom of the ocean, where old Wano is. We see it is submerged, it's underwater, there's fish swimming around it, and it is completely submerged. So, pretty cool. Going to be very interesting to see. I'm sure some of the cover story will show Yamato on her journey around the islands and all the villages and everywhere doing Odin's journey before she ventures out, which I'm going to assume will be the final cover story. I think that is how Oda will tie in as a little nod that Yamato will soon leave, because I think she has to join the Straw Hats. She's going to hear this, she's going to hear Vegapunk's broadcast because, well, as we saw in the end of the last chapter, it is being broadcast across the entire world. That's where last chapter ended, was Sanji hauling Vegapunk away. In his final moments, he was smiling. We don't know he's officially dead, but he took a massive laser beam through the chest from Kizaru. He was already beaten up from Saturn's pincer attack. So he wasn't in a good shape. He's old, he's small, he's fragile now. But he was smiling because it was sending a message or something triggered up in the lab to start the recording. And that's where we pick up. We have Shaka also on the video saying to the Stella, look, is this wise? Is this actually going to work out? We're just going to start broadcasting all of a sudden and everything will run smoothly, everyone will get to tune in. And Vegapunk's like, well, what do you mean? Like, this is the way to do it. And Shaka explains very logically. So Vegapunk's not thought this through, but explains, look, we're counting on a whole lot of people being ready to receive this message when it's sent, when it starts. And he's like, well, yeah, that's how information works. Look, like, how do you think it's going to? And then we hear it's like, look, agencies spread their message like this. That's how they get the news around the world the next day, And then Shaka raises the best point that Vegapunk should have thought about, was, what if someone intercepts this message beforehand and censors it? And Vegapunk's like, oh yeah, you're right. What suggestions have you got? So we zoom out of the television screen somewhere within the lab that has started this recording, and we hear the marine ships initially are reacting like, where's this broadcast coming from? How is it coming from every transponder snail on every ship? And we hear Shaka say, we could piggyback off the Navy comms traffic line, and that would allow us to force a worldwide constant broadcast with signal strength at max. And the Marines are freaking out. They're like, cut the connection, stop. And they're like, well, we can't do that. You know, that would cut off all our like supplies to each other and messaging. Like, how can we just shut the line off? And we see them say, look, well, you know, that'll be possible then for all the transponder snails to receive it, but they will still need time to set up the visual transponder snail that the video is trying to broadcast. And he's like, okay, yeah, you know, it varies from place to place, because if he's trying to go across the world, some places it's daytime, evening, people are asleep, we see later on, who wake up to try and get this message. No one is going to be immediately ready for this. The world is not prepared. So you've got to give them time. And while this conversation is being conveyed, like, just the Shaka and Vegapunk are conversing as everyone else is freaking out, and the message just carries on. And we see Luffy in giant form, one hand against Saturn's head, just pushing him back, one hand grasping Kizaru, and he's like, wait, what's going on? Like, just hearing what is happening in the distance. But we see Saturn again, just like that look that Sanji described as like he's lost all humanity almost. He's just glazed over. We see Vegapunk's like, okay, let's set an hour interval. I think an hour's fair enough. You know, that gives people more than enough time. And then they're like, my guy, an hour is way too long. Don't you realise what could happen in that time? And this is when we see then Nami and Chopper's reaction and Usopp. They're all like up in the lab on the cloud and like, how are we receiving this message? Isn't that Vegapunk's voice? Like, what's going on? And then we see, well, you know, if people worked out that we were broadcasting from somewhere, you know, wouldn't they just come and find it and like terminate it before we finished broadcasting? And he's like, oh, okay, fair point. Let's set this as the interval then. 10 minutes. Okay? People of the world. And that's all we hear from the transmission. Because we jump, after seeing all the fighting, there's like a giant fighting all the Marines. We see Vegapunk in Sanji's arms. Just out cold. Just like limp. And as he says, people of the world, we get an image of Saturn and then immediately jump to Marijois, who's also receiving this transmission because it's being hijacked on every world government channel, every marine channel. They're saying like, what's this transmission? What's the meaning of this? Saturn, have you dealt with Vegapunk? And Saturn responds, Kizaru delivered a killing blow. I saw it myself, he should be dead. And they're like, okay. Maybe it's a dead man switch, you know. The message was set up to play after the main body died. Yes, that seems likely. Don't you agree, Saturn? Yeah, I think so. Pause. Saturn is in a massive demonic form that was described as losing a shreds of humanity. He's really given over to his monstrous side, is what Sanji was trying to get across. But this dude is just having a casual conversation with his colleagues. This whole time, Saturn is communicating with the Gorosei I'm going to be very frank and say that there is no possibility that he has a transponder snail in his side pocket or in his ear. This has to be some work of their devil fruit or their abilities or something that is conveying the messages telepathy, like they're just talking to each other in each other's heads, because that's what telepathy is. But they seem to be perfectly fine to communicate all this very logically, Saturn included. And they're like, right, we have we have no way of knowing where this originates from. And we can see like other marines like Mars and Jupiter, those guys, Jupiter, and Mars something. I'll remember his name soon. But we can see that like, right, we need to pinpoint where the broadcast is coming from. And Jupiter, he's like, well, the only possible location that this actually could be and will be is Egghead. And it's likely up on the labostratum, but it's still being protected by that barrier of his. So it's got a big defensive wall around it. And then it cuts to Vegapunk's messaging continuing, saying he's talking now with Shaka like, oh, we've got 9.5 minutes, what should we do to kill the time, there's so much we could do. And Pythagoras is like, we could make some inventions, we can make stuff up. And then Vegapunk's like, how about some coffee sounds good about now. We jump away. Why does Oda do this? We've got 9.5 minutes before the message, potentially, if the Gorosei don't have any involvement. But for the time being, 9.5 minutes is what we've got. So the time is on. We jump to Dressrosa first. So we see everyone's reaction to hearing Vegapunk's voice. They're like, what is going on? What's happening? He's trying to tell the entire world something. It's got to be a big deal. We need to put the screens up immediately. We can see the people in like a panic, like freaking out. Like, Vegapunk is a genius. He has got to be doing this for some reason. And then we see Rebecca talking with the Tontatas and other people like, look, like, we've got to get this, we've got to listen to this, like, we've got to be ready. And she talks about, like, obviously Luffy. But, we jump away because there's not enough time to spend there because we have everyone else's reaction around the world. We jump to Fuchsia Village and people are like, oh, I thought this was someone about to badmouth Luffy. And it's like, do we have a video transponder sale in the village? Meh. And Whoop Slap's like, well, who's gonna pay for it? I'm not raising you to be freeloaders, like, anyone gonna chip in? Like, so we can see that they're probably they have one, probably set it up. We jump to then Water 7, where it is night time, and Iceberg is being woken up by his secretary Alice or Alish, and he's like, prepare the screens, get them set up, and she's already doodling away. We can see the little mouse on her head. Screens are set up, Mr. President. One's already on in the next room. We're already making preparations for the docks to also screen what is coming. Considering it is such an important event, a summon has been issued to notify all citizens that within 10 minutes the message starts, basically. That's all they've got. Is there anything else you want to add? Then we jump to the World Economic Journal, where Morgans is above his ship and he is ecstatic. He's like, what is this feed? Is he really using the Navy's frequency? Like, unencrypted, he's just putting it out there. Like, this is crazy. And we can see Vivi's like, where are Luffy and the others? Like, what's happening? But Morgans is so quick on it. And we actually got a reveal from Oda in the most recent SBS that Morgans stays in his devil fruit form the entire time. Like, Morgans is just a dude, but he just stays in his albatross form. So, pretty cool reveal. Makes sense. He's not like a mink or anything. But he's like, look, think about it, look at the clock in the background. It's a pre-recorded message because that's not the current time of Egghead. After all, there's a buster call right now. The island is probably reduced to flames and ash and it is gone. So Morgan's is just so switched on. It's great. We then have just a brief reaction of the west, north, and south blue. We see like west blue is like a mountainy village, the north is like an ice snow village, and the south is like a tropical island. I can't really make out what it is, but they're all again expressing their reactions to Vegapunk, the man who lit the world up. You know, the guy who is this genius. What could he possibly have? Like, he's going through all this trouble. What in the world does he want us to know? Is it like the invention of the century or something? My guy, it is going to be so much more than that. The final panels of reaction, equally one of the most important as well, is the revolutionaries of the Kamabaka Kingdom. We see they talk about, look, they're watching the message as Vegapunk is saying, you know, 10 minutes for coffee, that'll do. That's fair. Lovely. Ivankov is like, what's Vegapunk up to now? Like, has he lost his head? Like, this is crazy. And we see Koala's like, that's the Vegapunk everyone's on about? You know, that's the famous dude. And then Sabu's like, you know, he's quite the man in the middle of a crisis of war, apparently. And we can see, like, Dragon, again, speaks in ellipses, doesn't say anything. But there is a brief flashback. At the very start of Egghead, Shaka called Dragon and told him that I will be dead soon. The foreshadowing has happened. We are here. Vegapunk will be dead soon. And this was the confirmation. This is what he meant. That when Vegapunk died, this message was going out. So be ready. But all that said and done, all those reactions, all those people, a lot of very important characters to cover, we return back to the Buster Call at Egghead, where Luffy is not pulling his punches. And he realises that all those punches are having no effect on Saturn. Saturn is just taking everything. And he's like, wow, my punches aren't doing anything to you. But as he goes to try and wind up an attack, Saturn and Kizaru try and respond in time. Luffy dodges out the way, still grabbing hold, says, you know what, I'm not letting you two run off until I know my friends have escaped. And he winds up, he brings them back, and he goes for a Gomu Gomu booming symbol. He wraps his hands around like the area and slams Kizaru and Saturn together, squishes them like pancakes. They become like 2D, you know, cartoon style squished creatures. And Luffy, like pizzas, picks them up, spins them on his fingers, and he's like, look, since you just keep getting back up no matter what, I'm just going to send you off for good. And he throws them like frisbees, he sends them away, and the Marines are like, wait, what the hell is that up there? What? Is that a bird? But we see Kizaru lands dead on a ship. Pretty lucky. You know, Luffy's being a nice guy there, making him land on a ship. But as Luffy is just laughing in his Gear 5th form, Saturn, like a boomerang, spins around the direction he was going and starts to, like, attack towards Luffy, spinning his legs like blades. He is just going for a slice. And Luffy is like, what is it going to take to keep you down? We see Kizaru is flat, back, three-dimensional, lying on the ship, head over his eyes, completely done. I think like this is him now just being like, he's actually just realised what he's done. I actually don't think I mean, maybe he saw. This is more of an expression of a man who is upset. We can see like the huffs, the breaths, or whatever. He's realising what he's done to Vegapunk. It wasn't as easy mentally on him as he thought it could be, or emotionally. And now that he's away from Saturn's eyes for the time being, he can get his true emotion out. And I don't think he's happy. But what we do see is Luffy sprinting away in midair as he always does in his Gear 5 form. And the Gorosei continue to speak to Saturn and say, look, there's no time. We can't allow Vegapunk to speak freely. And what we see here now on the last double like panel of this chapter is crazy. The Straw Hats have just gotten to the giant's ship. So Frankie, Atlas, Kuma, Bonnie, they've all just got there. I'm sure the others will be there soon. They've reached the ship. They're here, ready to go. And Saturn speaks. And he says, okay then. I shall perform the summoning. And giant columns of black lightning begin to erupt from the island. And everyone is like, what is that? And Luffy's like, hold up. Luffy gets his eyes like bulging out, like what's going on? And we see Saturn sunk into like the island, causing a massive quake around him. And 4 black flaming portals begin to ignite around him. Sanji says it is just like when he appeared the first time. That is where we end the chapter. There is a break next week because apparently Oda needs time to cool his hand off, because 1110 is going to be the chapter where all 5 Gorosei are on Egghead and are about to show what they are capable of. Oda has waited for... We know Oda loves to play on numbers. 1110, 1111 is probably going to be an even bigger chapter. Is that when we're going to actually get the reveal from Vegapunk? Is 10 minutes going to pass? I don't know. The capabilities of the Gorosei now is only just being, like, the surface is being shown. They were communicating in their heads their entire time. Saturn is just, like, I mean, it might not be the Gorosei. It's speculation purely. 4 portals, 4 of the Gorosei, surely it is the most convincing theory. He could just be summoning, Sleep Token. He could just be summoning demons or some sort of curses that relate to his devil fruit. But I truly believe he's summoning something big. And if with his devil fruit he can just summon anyone, why would he not summon the other Gorosei just to deal with this problem? What an explosive chapter. I mean, it is monumental at this stage. Like, the amount of things that are being dropped. The fact that so much has happened. Like, we're going to have to recap Egghead at some point, because it is the amount of lore and reveals we've had in just this arc alone is just setting up this final saga to be even more monumental than anything we've ever known in One Piece. The fact that we are here now, like when were the Gorosei first revealed? Like chapter 100 or something. Like almost 1,000 chapters later, and the Gorosei are all here potentially, uniting. Do we get to see the devil fruits? Do we get to see what forms they take? Is it going to just be like, yo, we gotta go? Oh man. And Saturn can talk this whole time. He is in full control. He just is demonic. What's Luffy gonna do? He can't damage him. He was punching and throwing him and flattening him like a pancake and throw it, and just nothing was working. I think the significance as well of 4 portals, it's got to be the other Gorosei. I still can't believe I can't remember all the names. I know it was a long time ago. I've only ever talked about Saturn for the past like year now. But Jupiter I remember because it's like Jupiter. There's Mars. No, that's going to stump me. I'll probably write it somewhere when I've done the research on what the 4 names were again, because I should really know that. But, wow. Are we really going to see all 4 of them? That would be so cool. Anyway, let me know what you think. Who do you think is coming out of those portals? What did you think of the chapter? I will see you guys next time. Bye.